Hi everyone, I'm Aditya Goel. Because the story that I'm going to talk about today is a very personal one. I think it is something that I hope leaves you with something to think about after the end of the talk. So I'm Aditya Goel. I'm IIFT 2013. Before that, I'm also an engineer, like a lot of us, I'm sure. And before that, I was at DPS RK. IIFT thankfully gave me the opportunity to meet some fabulous people and get a very coveted job at a very big and leading FMCG company. I was one of the PPO converts, so to say. So I was there, and then I worked there for about 1.5 years. Switched over to a larger organization in my hometown. Again, a very exciting move. And then the end of those, another 1.5 years, typically I was about at 4 years of work, I got fired from my last job. So my talk today is going to be about getting fired and starting up. It is a surprisingly enough, it is not a very highly spoken about topic because I think people feel that it is something sort of a failure or something like that. But I feel that it is something we should talk about more because it is the reality of corporate world today, right? So I told you about my Godrej and Reckitt days, and then I got fired. That the date was 8th December 2016, and thankfully I had something called a garden leave then. So I could sort of be on a payroll and get a salary for about 2.5, 3 months, and not sort of go to work. So I said, oh, this is a great opportunity. Let me see what I have to do now. Now, the interesting bit is, that I was working very hard to build myself up as a professional, right? So you're taking online courses, you're learning e-commerce. I was spending time on digital marketing. So I was pretty much well set for a long-term corporate career. Now, of course, probably at the back of the mind, I would say that, at that point in time, everybody had thought of starting up at some point in time. And I was also one of them, but that was not the plan at that point in time. So I said, okay, what do I do from tomorrow? I need to sort of figure something out. So I did, what typically somebody would do. I started sitting at Chayos. So I live in a place called Greater Kailash in New Delhi. And there was a Chayos in Nehru Place, which was kind enough to make me sit there with my laptop. The first thing did was bought a laptop of my own. I didn't have one. And then started sitting at Chayos for the next 20 days. So Chayos was just having a cup of tea, applying for jobs, and then there was a book that I was reading, which I highly recommend to people, called The Shoe Dog. It is about the story of the Nike founder. I feel one of the most amazing books to read for any budding entrepreneur out there. Those 22 days, was probably the most cathartic experience of my life. Why? Because it is often that we say that we are so busy, we don't have time. We are so busy, we don't have time. But those 22 days, I had all the time in the world. I did not know what to do. I was trying to pass time by, how can you spend 8 hours finding a job, right? I said, well, this is not sort of, what I want to do. Interviews have started, etc. But I think this is an opportunity that has come. I may look at starting up now. So I took up a co-working space at 8,500 rupees, called the Founders Cafe. It's not active now. It is in a place called Okla. I started sitting there from 1st January 2017, which is what I called our Founders Day. Wo hota hai na, that first day of the year, do something which you want to do for the rest of the year. For me, it turned out to be for the rest of my life. So I made a small presentation called What's in Store, and put together a 10-slide PPT and said that, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to apply for jobs, and I'm going to continue reading a few books on entrepreneurship here and there. So that was a story of essentially how I sort of started. Interestingly, what happened over the next 2 months is that I converted two decent job offers. One was actually a sales head of a very large food unicorn, which would have probably been financially, personally better for me at this stage. But somehow what it made me realize is that, if I can get a job or this kind of a job at that point in time, I can always get it in future as well. So I gave up that opportunity and took up the idea of taking my presentation and went against the most common notion of taking your idea to other people. Koi copy kar lega and all of that. So I said, no, nothing doing. I want to take it to 100 people. Kept meeting people, showing them my PPT. A lot of them said, don't do it, very operationally heavy, very large, you don't have the money, etc. And then one of the kind souls introduced me to my co-founder Nishit. And so that meeting happened. We met about twice. First, it was a no, then a yes, then a no, then a yes, right? So typical co-founder conversations. And then 1st April 2017 is when we sort of formalized the organization and went live. So that has been the story of starting up. I mean, since then, where we've reached now, I would want to tell you a bit more about LoveInStore. So LoveInStore is a people tech payment services company. We work with 30 leading FMCGs in India. We have 4,500 people pan-India as a full-time employees, and we service the companies in modern trade, general trade, e-commerce, and direct payments. And this year we'll be a 200 crore turnover organization. We are profitable, we are bootstrapped, we don't have VCs, investors, you've never been on Shark Tank. So it is a more of a traditional business from what we have built over in the last 5 years. This 1st January 2022 was the 5 years that I had set myself personally as a goal point that, okay, in the next 5 years, let me try and create 100 jobs. Uh, that went to 4,500, but of course the goalpost keeps sort of shifting, right? So let me talk about, the 5 key learnings that I sort of had, in the last 5 years, especially since, we got fired and sort of went ahead. First thing I want to speak about is, getting fired. See, getting fired is a reality of corporate world today. It could happen to any one of us. It is not that a company was wrong, you were wrong, job was wrong. Sometimes things don't work out. So best to be mentally prepared for that kind of an uncertainty. COVID has definitely, made sure that, we prepare for a lot of uncertainties. Unfortunately, we've had a tough time last 2 years, but it is very important that be it your finances, be it your family, be it your expenses, you're sorted and clear about it. Second thing I realized is that family stands by. Thankfully, I was dating somebody then for a good 6-7 years. Now I'm married to her. We've been together for 13 years. Family and, my then girlfriend, now wife, were the two primary reasons which stood by me during that tough time. If you have them, there's a lot to be taken care of that they can take care of, and you can focus on yourself. Thirdly, and very importantly, especially for, the B schoolers that would be a typical audience here, people do look at you differently when you fail. I was so surprised that, I was a good performer in my job. Then people knew of me. I had well networked within the organization. Probably I was getting calls on a weekly basis for a job here and there. But as soon as I got fired, and I am, of course, somebody, who will not sort of hide it, people started looking at me differently. It was close friends who, refused to send resumes, who were ignoring me, consultants are not answering my call. And then I realized one thing that, build your own personal brand and personal network. The personal network is something that will compound over years. I now have, some 10, 12,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I'm connected to a lot of people. I know the in and out of the FMCG industry in India. And I know that tomorrow, whenever I fail again, which could happen, of course, at any point in time, I know there is something that I can personally leverage instead of reaching out to people through someone for help. Fourthly, your own potential is possibly limited by your own past achievements. I'll tell you about myself. I was in a premium B school. I was in a high paying job. I had amazing colleagues. I was enjoying my work quite a bit. I never had a reason to start up. Right? I always wanted to, it was one of those thoughts that, we should start up at some point in time. I probably want to establish a company at some point in time, but couldn't do it. I didn't have a reason to. And lastly, with that entire, those 22 days and, probably the next few months also, right? I became most aware of the privilege I came from. I grew up in a large city. I went to a good school. I had the privilege of even my parents paying for my education. And that realization told me that, am I happy aiming for a higher paying job for the rest of my life? Or can I, as a single individual, create 100 jobs, take a risk, and do something about it? And these 5 things is what I say changed my life. These are realizations that happened to me during those 22 days. And these are things which brought us to where LoveInStore is today. So I hope, that gives you something to think about. I also want to speak about, running a company for 5 years. So see, entrepreneurship is something which is not for everyone. Entrepreneurship is something which is amazing. It could be the best learning experience of your life, whether you do it for your entire life, you do it for a year, 3 months or 6 months. I always say, give it a shot. Definitely give it a try. But it is not something for everyone. Now, when we started off, did we know that in 5 years we'll run a 200 crore company? Of course, the answer is no. Because if you're a realist, especially I consider myself a realist, the idea was that, when we start off, it'll be 1 customer, 2 customer, 3 customers, sort of B2B sales basis, right? So I can maybe, to give you a number, what revenue I did in December 2021 was the revenue I did in my first financial year entirely. So one thing about entrepreneurship is that it teaches you consistency. It teaches you to be persistent. It teaches you to get back up whenever you fall down. But at the same time, after running a company for 5 years, building a very large team, so we have 4,500 people in the field and about 170 people who are the core team of the company. About 5 people report to me. So of course, I don't handle more than 4 or 5 people, but I would want to definitely talk about, what we've learned up in the last 5 years. One is that, your business does not start from when you have an idea or a PPT. I think your business starts, especially I want to speak about from a B2B perspective. Your business starts when you've signed up your first few customers, because it is your customer that's going to teach you what they want, right? It's your first one, two, three customers, which were very large FMCGs for us, uh, which taught us what exactly they want. We were ready to pivot at the right time. We did that. From what Watson Store PPT was in the first day, LoveInStore is 10% of what it was probably then. Now it is, of course, a very large business with multiple services. But if you listen to your first few customers, you're definitely going to hit a home run. Let me talk about my 5 key learnings, of running a company in the last 5 years. First of all is people. An organization is not its product or brand. It is the people who are and will continue to be the biggest assets. As a founder, as somebody, who is seen as a leader in the organization, people are your most important asset. You have to empower them, take care of them, have a healthy relationship with them, and give them the environment to grow and make this business of what you want it to be. Secondly, success will make you famous. It will give you your social media, it will give you your status. I think entrepreneurship or doing, webinars is a status game, but your humility, honesty, and ethics will make you memorable. A few zeros here and there will not make a difference. I don't think beyond a point somebody can, change their personal income or live a different lifestyle. But if you run a ethically honest business, it will definitely make sure that you go to sleep peacefully at night. So that is what we've built up, and that is how it's sort of been there. Third, I would want to, talk about this race of entrepreneurship that people talk about, right? You can call it a race, I call it more of a marathon, but the idea is very simple that, whenever you feel that you can't do it anymore, whenever you fell down, always remember why you started. I think that is a conversation that unfortunately I had to had with my own self, right? Multiple times over the last 5 years, when we've had tough years, tough quarters, we went through COVID, we went through a brief pay cut as well. That when I started with the idea that I want to create 100 jobs, I am already at 4,000. So that I'm not saying that idea of 100 was wrong, but I am should be very much satisfied with what I've built up, right? So if I'm feeling down, pick yourself up and move ahead, definitely. Two more learnings I want to share. One is a service business. So you see, service and B2B services, I would say that it is an easier business to build as compared to, consumer companies. I'm sure a lot of us are watching Shark Tank these days and see a lot of brands. See the kind of funding, financing, or the kind of effort that building a B2C brand or a D2C brand takes, a B2B business takes much lesser. So it's definitely an easier space to be in. But building a B2B business in India is not a very easy thing. We are very driven to, drive down costs. We expect a certain level of service, and it often becomes very difficult to service a client. But what solved that problem for us is I felt that, when we were able to inculcate a mentality of partnership between the client and our company and change this from a client agency relationship to a business partner relationship, it made sure that the clients also own not just our successes, but also our failures. So it is a very important culture to not just inculcate in your team, but try and take that relationship with the client also to a partnership relationship. And lastly, and most importantly, I always say this, that, once a business is kicked off, right? Once a business starts off, I would say give it a year, 2 years, 2.5 years. But once a business is live, the biggest mistake that people make is they want to continue taking calls, taking decisions, and being the smartest person in the room. It can give you a big kick out of it. You can win an account, you can go do the sale yourself. But if you are the smartest person, even after business has taken off, then you're definitely not doing something right. Beyond a point, your job as a founder would be to find people smarter than you, build a fantastic team for yourself, and let them build teams that will build a sort of result driven organization. You do not have to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to be the most dependable person in the room, which means that when everything stops working, when a lockdown happens, when people are falling sick, when you sort of need to repair relationships with clients, you not need to get new business and things are not going in your favor, everything in the world can stop working, but you can't. But with that realization set in, pick the battles that you want to fight and fight them the way a founder would have fought them when it was day one. I think that's it. So that is the learnings that I wanted to share. So just I want to quickly summarize a few of those. I wanted to speak about, how I got fired and I started up. I spoke about the learnings from getting fired, and I spoke about the learnings from starting up. I would again recommend that, do take this chance on yourself, or take a punt on yourself, as in when you get time in your life. The later you do it, the harder it becomes, because of the kind of money that people typically end up making. But wish you the best. And if any of you want to connect on entrepreneurship, I'll be available via LinkedIn to have a conversation at any point in time. I thank TEDx and IFT again for giving me this opportunity. Have a nice day.